Good evening once again, people of YouTube. Damien Jones here again for you. And today I'm going to give you another creepy story. This time it's from Scotland. Sit back, relax, turn down the lights. Give me your full attention, and I will begin. It is said that long ago there were once two brothers who worked as blacksmiths at a village in the border region of Scotland. They were handsome lads with bright blue eyes and fiery hair, and they were as happy as the day is long. So hard did they toil from morning till dusk, and with many a dram after supper, that they slept soundly at night, never waking until the sun showed in the morning sky. Then there came a time when the younger brother lost the sparkle in his eyes. Day by day he grew more weary, with hardly the strength to wield the hammer, and the older brother was distressed to see him wasting away. "It's a lassie who comes to me in my dreams and keeps me from my sleep," the younger brother explained one day. He told of a girl with raven locks and eyes that held him spellbound. Quiet as the moonlight, she would steal into his room whenever he closed his eyes. There she would whisper his name, kiss him gently, and entice him to follow her out into the night. For a long time he would tell no more, because he had promised the girl of his dreams that no one should hear of his adventures after dark. And so his eyes grew hollow, his cheeks pale, and often he would toss and turn in his bed, crying out in his sleep. As the days wore on, he became more and more listless. He lost his appetite, and some mornings was too tired to climb from his bed. At last he could hide the secret no longer. It was then that the older brother learned that the beguiling lassie who came to him at night was in truth a witch. Her gentle touch and soft brown eyes hid a heart of stone. Each night, when she had lured the young one from his room, she took him to a stable and there slipped an enchanted bridle over his head. By some mysterious spell, she was able to at once transform him into a lively stallion with a chestnut mane, on whose back she might travel fast wherever so she wished. Over hills and glens her mount would gallop, and screeching with excitement she would spur him on and on with never a moment's rest. To a far-off place they would journey. There a coven met with their master, the devil himself. There, panting and glistening with sweat, the beast was tethered to a tree until their revelry was over. And before the first cock crowed, she would ride back again, unbridle the exhausted stallion, and with the spell now wearing off, would leave in the stable a fatigued and bewildered young man. Hearing of the young one's plight, the older brother was furious and swore that by all that was holy to break the evil spell. The next time the witch came calling, it was he who lay in his brother's place. Peeping above the blankets, silent as a wraith, she entered the room through the window and stood beside the bed. He felt the touch of her hand and lips as she whispered to wake him from sleep. Her black hair fell over her eyes. Longer than usual she lingered there, for her kisses were exciting, and he was far more a resourceful opportunist than his younger brother. Eventually he followed out into the night along the path leading to the stable, where she fastened the enchanted bridle to his head and shoulders. Almost at once the spell was cast. As had happened before, it was not the hand of a young man that she held, but the reins of an excited stallion whose hooves teared at the ground, its chestnut mane shining in the moonlight. With a shriek of delight, the witch leapt on its back and spurred the beast into a gallop. Horse and rider sped off over the bears to the devil's Rendeverness. And in that sheltered glen far away the coven met to dance and weave their mischief. While the witch was at her merrymaking, the stallion tugged and bit at its tether. Again and again he rubbed his head against a tree until the bridle fell away. Free at last, the beast melted into the darkness, and in its place the older brother now stood breathless and bewildered. For a long time he hid in the shadows, waiting for his tormentor to return. When she appeared, he crept up behind her and fastened the bridle about her head. Her struggles were all in vain, for instantly the spell fell upon her. Instead, clinging to was a black mare, and her shrieking to a whinny, the avenger climbed on her back, digging his heel into her flanks so savagely that she set off at a furious gallop. Lashing out with the reins, he rode the mare along the roughest paths. Mile after mile he spurred her on, through hedges and over ditches, up the steepest slopes, and headlong down the other side. It was dawn before they reached the village, and the mare could barely drag one leg behind the other. Its nostrils flared, and its coat steamed, and froth bubbled from its mouth. Some say that the blacksmith was merciless and nailed iron shoes to the mare's bleeding hooves. Others say that he took pity on the wretched beast, confident the witch had learned her lesson. So he led the mare to the stable behind the forge. There he fed and watered her, bathed her wounds, and at last let her rest a while. Before grooming her, newly shod, she was set free to wander the banks and bears. No one will ever know whether, at the end of its journey, the mare was shown compassion or cruelly driven away, but it is remembered that before the day had passed, a long-haired, bonny lassie from over the hill was found in her bed, hugging at the sheets about her, fearful that someone would find her there. When neighbours ignored her shrieking protests and tore away the sheets from her grasp, her body was seen to be bruised and scratched, and to each of her hands and feet a horseshoe was nailed. Sleep well.